you on her staff. I can see that because you know how to solve the people's issues. I got to ask you, I was saying earlier, a good buddy of mine, Ben Sasenko, used to work for CBS 13 out here many years ago, transferred into Mayor KJ's office, and now he's in the world of politics. So you've done TV, you've risen up through the ranks, and you're going from TV to the Mayor of Oakland's office. Why?
Well, Dave, I figured it's time to stop talking about it on TV and be about it and actually try to implement some change. And I've fought for Oakland my entire life. You've seen how hard I've fought for Oakland sports and my coverage. And I think that people deserve to be proud of where they live and have civic pride. And I think that, I want to help bring positivity and spread the message and just do the best I can to support the mayor and her administration. So yeah, man, that's basically it. When opportunity knocks, sometimes you just have to answer the door. And this wasn't a pivot I was looking to make, but the opportunity came to me and I said, sure, why not?
Okay. So let me see here. Cause dude, I love and hate following politics, but I appreciate, so let's see, you knocked right there in that one answer. You did enough talking about it. You got to be about it, which I saw that messaging on your Twitter yesterday. Knock on the door and answer. And I want to say I think you nailed 3 platitudes in one answer, which is 100% staying on message. You're already in the political world. So look, you love Oakland like I love Sacramento. And
100%.
This really caught my eye, Casey. We'll get to the A's in a second. It really did catch my eye because I've for years, worked with the mayors, whether it's KJ or now Daryl Steinberg, the mayor's former chief of staff, Canal Merchant's one of my best friends to this day. Finally getting married next year. Thank God somebody's going to put up with him. I like being able to actually try to affect change, but I also am so turned off politically by everything. I don't care what the party is. I don't care who the person is. It's just you open yourself up to just everybody's a slime ball. Everybody's going to yell at you about something. You can't do this because this other thing needs this and that and that. And it really is a mental tax. I'm sure you thought of that before you accepted this job. And how were you what kind of deal were you able to make with yourself psychologically to go from being the pretty guy on TV that's well-spoken and everybody loves to going and working for someone who anybody that's a mayor of a major city like that is going to be a polarizing, controversial figure working in that office, knowing that you're going to get some not so friendly people?
Yeah, I think that firsthand, and I think that what you just said makes perfect sense. Like, you love Sacramento like I love Oakland, and I wanted to be able to help out. And I think that the same people that are already outraged with me for saying all the nice things I say about Oakland are the same people that are outraged at this news. It's no different in that regard because, this Oakland coverage situation, everything I was doing on a daily basis had already become highly political. And you've experienced that as well. You just mentioned knowing the mayors and being good friends with the chief of staff. It's much the same for me. Like, the same people I'm talking to and dealing with today are the same people I was talking to and dealing with in all my A's coverage and Oakland sports coverage. So obviously there's a myriad of other issues that are now things that are on the table, but my favorite thing, frankly, I learned and experienced covering Howard Terminal and the A's Stadium saga is that it forced me to break out of my sports bubble. And I had to talk to politicians and economists and lawyers and real estate experts and learn all these different things about, how a stadium can be built, like your affordable housing percentages and your CEQA, your California environmental laws. And so in forcing myself to go into that realm in covering the A's, it really just opened me up to a whole nother world of people and experiences. And I really enjoyed it. So I like being a fast study. I like knowing how things work. And I just like learning. So I'm just, I'm learning as fast as I can right now.
I'm proud of you. Casey Pratt joining us, taking the plunge. And I want to get to the A's. I know you do too, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you. And listen, I'm going to keep this, and I highly suggest, well, you do what you want, but I'm going to keep this incredibly non-specific. But I got to ask you, The mayor's been in the news recently. I'm sure you've read about that. And I got to be honest with you, dude. When I first heard, because I do like you and I do care about what you're doing, when I first heard the news as to what you were doing, my first reaction was like, oh, good for him. And then my second reaction was like, ugh, okay, because you're stepping into a bit of a tornado there. And I'll let people Google as to why. I got to ask you, was that tornado part of the reason you chose to make the move right now to be there as a line of defense, or is it just coincidental?
I would say it's just coincidental.
Okay.
All of that is something you have to consider when you take the job. All that being said, again, my first day was yesterday, so I can't necessarily get deep into the whole situation because I just frankly wasn't there for any of it. But my thing is, I've gotten to know this mayor really well. I really like her. I really respect her, and I enjoy all of our interactions. And I wouldn't have taken this job if she was the type of person she's being portrayed as. That is absolutely not the case. So yes, I consider all of that in making my decision, but I can say that, me, I wouldn't jump into something if it was something that I thought was as bad as it's being portrayed as.
Are the A's leaving Oakland and no chance of them coming back? Is that something that you believe, or do you still believe there's a lot more hope than a lot of people think?
Look, if the A's have any chance of staying in Oakland, I like the fact that I'll probably be in those meetings now. That being said, I think they're 100% on their way to Sacramento. That ship has sailed.
Yep.
The bigger question for me isn't whether or not they end up in Sacramento. It's if they end up in Las Vegas. And if they don't end up in Las Vegas, does Sacramento have a chance to keep them? Or will all the tech billionaires in the Bay Area jump up and have another shot? And I think that that's the more likely scenario. But, as we've discussed at length, especially the day this all came out and I was able to press Vivek Ranadive about it, is he feels like the amnesty he granted the A's puts him in pole position, as he says. And I don't disagree with that. I just think that the pole position is not going to mean a whole lot when all these power players out in the Bay Area step up to the plate, if they get that chance.
What do you make of the recent revelation? Or I should be fair. What do you make of the recent allegations? Aren't the right word either. The whole gag order on potential buyers, kind of whether some say it was Major League Baseball, some say it was Oakland officials, some say it was a combination of both. It seems like it would be quite the different storyline if you had publicly a row of very rich people trying to buy a team that was trying to leave Oakland. I feel like that would change the narrative quite a bit. I know you've known about that because we've talked about it, but now that that's out in public, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I like that you acknowledge that we've talked about that, because stuff like this happens all the time where something will come out in an article and everyone will freak out, and I'll be like, dude, I've been telling you guys this for like years. First and foremost, Oakland would never be the people to tell owners not to come forward. If they did, it would be because the commissioner told them to tell them that. This is like the unwritten rules of baseball at an ownership level. If you're interested in buying a team, you don't come out and say it, because as soon as you do, it's an instant turnoff for the MLB commissioner and the other owners. You don't do that, because all it does is create problems for whatever deals they're trying to broker in the background. And so, that's like unwritten rule A1 of ownership. You don't make noise ahead of that. Joe Lacob has very respectfully made some noise by making some quotes. I've been saying forever there are a lot of other groups out there that would definitely be interested in buying the team aside from the Joe Lacob group. All of that being said, if you ever want a chance, you got to keep your mouth shut. And that's exactly what's happening. So this whole gag order story blew up, but stuff that you and I have been talking about for a long time, and it's all just common. I mean, this is what happens. You can't make that noise or you're not going to be considered.
I keep going back to the same thing, Casey, and as Casey Pratt joins us, nobody knows this story better than you, and I keep going back to the same thing, which is you have the worst owner in sports that has driven not one but two franchises into the ground along with the earthquakes. It would be comical if it wasn't so heartbreaking what John Fisher has done to the A's. You have the hottest sports market in America in Las Vegas that's prime for an expansion team. And you have multiple deep-pocketed and in some cases already sports owners that are willing to bid to buy this team from John Fisher, keep it in Oakland. When Sacramento was moving to Seattle, the problem here is we didn't have an ownership group. Kevin Johnson had to put that ownership group together on the fly. And the whole thing was, does anybody want to pay a record amount of money to keep this NBA team in a small market like Sacramento? You're talking about a massive market in the Bay Area. You're talking about deep-pocketed owners, and you're talking about the worst owner in sports. Casey, why is baseball letting this happen?
I think because they feel, as an ownership collective, that standing up to the public funds being demanded by all these different municipalities to keep their teams or to get investments in stadia, I think that they feel like if they don't stand up to that and make an example out of a market, then these funds will dry up everywhere else too. John Fisher may be a terrible owner, but he hasn't committed any crimes.
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything that, warrant him being thrown out of the ownership group. I think that that's where they're at. And the sad thing is, I truly believe that Las Vegas would be a great baseball market.
Yeah.
I obviously know Oakland's a great baseball market, and I really do think Sacramento would be a great baseball market. So, but what's happening is they're muddying the waters in all three of these great places just for this ownership group, and I think it's terrible. Like, I would love expansion in Vegas and the A's stay in Oakland, or expansion in Vegas and the A's stay in Sacramento. I think that keeping that team in Northern California would be spectacular. Obviously, my preference would be Oakland, as you know, but Sacramento's not that far, and I love going there for River Cats games. So I think that that's probably the best outcome, but that's not the outcome they're looking at. And because of that, it's just really dragging everybody through the mud. And every time the A's and John Fisher have a chance to show that they have something actually cooking in Vegas, they don't show you anything. And it's like, it's starting to get extremely suspicious.
It's been suspicious for a long time. It's getting very publicly,
far more suspicious, to the point that Vegas people are noticing now. But yes, we've been talking about how suspicious this is for a long time, Dave.
Yeah, there's no there it seems presented to the council at Las Vegas. Just a lot of writing and gobbledygook, and we've heard different opinions. Hey, they're on track or they're way behind. I want to go back to something I've been talking about all week, which is the financing for John Fisher, and the fact that he's seemingly trying to raise around $850 million, somewhere in that neighborhood, to privately fund or help privately fund the stadium, in addition to the public subsidy that he's getting. And I keep going back to his valuation for a team that's somewhere in the $1 to $2 billion range, probably more in the middle. And it sounds like his valuation, without having to give up a majority share, is going to have to be around $3 billion for non-controlling interest shares. Do you see him finding a path to financing this thing through private equity? Because it doesn't seem like he's getting a lot of bites on that fish hook.
Yeah, right now there just aren't bites. I haven't heard of any, and their financing situation hasn't been great. Goldman Sachs had spent a lot of time trying to line up a loan for them, and they finally put together a package that the A's rejected. They just haven't been able to demonstrate that the money is there. And they keep saying, oh, well, if we have to, the family will cover it. But there's been no evidence that they will. I mean, that's the thing, is they could really shut up everybody really quick. And they had a huge opportunity to in that last Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting. And they yet again showed up without any information. And Dave Kaval and John Fisher weren't even in the meeting. So, I think that there's still a lot more questions than answers about financing for this ballpark. And, the partner on their land there, that was supposed to be developing all the stuff around the ballpark also has a lot of question marks. So at this point in time, they got to start answering some questions soon because the people in Las Vegas are going to get even more frustrated. And then you got the NBA probably coming to town. So there's just a lot of options in Las Vegas, and baseball is not presenting itself as one of the elite options at the moment.
So let's go way, way, way into the future and Vegas aside, because the other interesting thing is that public subsidy falls apart, as I understand it. If they change venue, if that site should fall through and they have to do it all over again, and it seems like the political climate now is not what it was for this stadium now that more people know more things. Let's just assume Vegas falls through, whether it's this year, next year, the year after, and now all of a sudden the A's are in Sacramento. Do you see it as they're now the Sacramento A's and Vivek moves in or Fisher stays? Or do you think at that point, I'm asking you to guess, and it's an educated one, do you think at that point Fisher just says, all right, we're going to auction, highest bidder, Vivek, you got the same opportunity as everybody else, Joe Lacob, Larry Ellison, whoever, you guys have your opportunities, let's go. How do you see that playing out, assuming Vegas falls through?
I think if Vegas falls through, he's definitely going to sell. I think he may have been forced to sell if he couldn't have found anywhere to play the next several seasons.
Agreed.
Which is why when Vivek stepped up and gave them basically free rent in their run of Sutter Health Park, it really undercut Oakland and essentially secured Fisher's path to Vegas. But if he does sell, yeah, I think it's going to the highest bidder. What I think Vivek did, though, was a huge favor for Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball. And obviously they have a large say in who inevitably buys the team. So that will put him in their good graces, but I don't know how much good graces are going to mean when money is on the table. So that's where it'll probably end up if Vegas does not happen.
And I got to be fair, just as you are, you and I both are very clear on where we're at with this thing. But the pushback, because I've said what you've said before, what you just said, which is providing the path, making it easier for John Fisher. The pushback I've received is, hey, look, it would have been Sacramento or it would have been Salt Lake City. And Sacramento knew that, and they tried to grab the team because better here than in Salt Lake City. Do you agree with that pushback?
Not really. And the reason why is because of the TV deal. I think the A's staying in Sacramento gave them the opportunity to largely stay on the TV contract that was critical for them because it was a lot of money. Dave Cavill told me himself, I haven't heard this from anywhere else, that the TV deal essentially stayed the same, which is big because it was paying them a fortune, around $70 million a year. And if they lost that money, they would have been in big trouble. Because the A's have said themselves they were operating on a $40 million a year loss. I'm not sure how you could possibly pull that one off. But, yeah, that money was critical. So, that's why when you started looking at Salt Lake City or potentially, Las Vegas's AAA park as an option, those were really non-starters because if they were in breach of their TV contract, their entire financial system would go belly up. So it was critical.
Yeah,
they stayed here.
60
NorCal area,
and with a payroll of 60 million to your point, that TV deal is rather vital. So then, let me turn this around in just a couple more here. So, in your opinion, if Sacramento had not been or become the port in the storm for the Athletics, and we're standing here today, how do you think that part plays out? They go back to Oakland and try to grind out a deal there until Vegas. They end up going to Vegas and playing in that minor league park and taking it in the teeth. How do you think that would have ended? Let's remove Sacramento from the equation.
They were already at the table and highly motivated in Oakland to solve that issue because they already had their own facilities there. They already have all their offices there. It would have been a whole lot easier for them just to stay in Oakland, but Oakland stuck to their guns too and said, hey, look, you're going to have to pay us a pretty sizable lease if you want to stay in this area, which was a savvy move on their part because they did not want to help Fisher get to Vegas either.
Sure.
Right? These next 3 years were critical for John Fisher to find a way to get to Las Vegas. So, they would have been happy to let the A's stay there, but they weren't going to make it pain-free. What ended up happening was Sacramento came to the table and made it largely pain-free aside from the renovations that'll need to happen at Sutter Health Park. And, we probably don't have time to get on the whole artificial turf tangent, but, I think that there's a lot of issues with all of this, and I'm surprised the MLBPA is so willing to play ball here, so to speak.
Last thing for you, and I don't want to put you in a tough spot, but let's just be perfectly transparent. You're going to work for the mayor of Oakland. Let's go back in the time machine 2 days, because I think you can answer this question as Casey Pratt, the news guy, and not Casey Pratt speaking on behalf of the mayor, but I'll let you do whatever you want to do. Where is the city of Oakland when it comes to any possible opportunity that might arise in the A's somehow returning to Oakland? As silly or as impossible as it may seem, is the mayor still, like, if the mayor got a call tomorrow, is in your mind, is she coming to the table? Is there still a deal to be had if John Fisher were to cooperate, which is like, if my wife didn't get on me for doing the dishes, it's not going to happen, but is that a scenario?
Yeah, I can, obviously I've only worked there 1 day, so I'm not fully uploaded on everything. That being said, as a news person that has spoken to the mayor about this very subject many times, she would absolutely be willing to answer the phone. I can tell you that. Because obviously the A's in Major League Baseball are massively beloved in this region. And if they had a chance to come back and stay there, especially under a new ownership regime, they would jump at it. And not just because of keeping the sport, because they've already done an immense amount of work to get this thing done, right? Like, they were 90% of the way there to keeping the A's before Fisher walked away. So yes, they have Howard Terminal as an option. They have the Coliseum site as an option. They have tons and tons and tons of time and money and effort spent on keeping this team, and they could, in a lot of ways, pick up where they left off. So yes, I could tell you for sure they would be willing to take that call.
All right. So as we say goodbye, I'm kind of curious, Casey, like, is this it? Like, when we want to talk A's in the future and stuff, are you going to have to be all like official and I can't say this, which is perfectly understandable. You're an official guy now. I mean, is this our last conversation on this, or are you still going to be available? How's that going to go moving forward with your media hits?
Call me, man.
Okay.
I mean, I think you and I know each other really well at this point, and we exchange high-level messages off the radio too. But everything I say is always official, Dave. It's been that way forever. That doesn't change. You give me a call, I'll answer. And, I just want to say one last thing since I am on the Sacramento airwaves. There was some confusion last week where Kings fans were trying to say that I'm anti-Sacramento, and I can say unequivocally that's not the case. Hopefully you'd back me up on that. I've always express my love and appreciation for Sacramento and the fans there and the heroic efforts they made to keep the Kings. And like, I even tweeted, like, show me one thing I've said negative about Sacramento, I'll wait. And not only did nobody send me anything, I got a DM from the person that said it apologizing because he realized that I actually have been a champion of Sacramento as well. So I love you guys out there. I've always been a huge fan. Like, my favorite memories covering the A's, believe it or not, were when I was at Sutter Health Park when the River Cats were the A's affiliate, and I got a big hug from Manny Ramirez, and I got to see Yoenis Cespedes rehabbing down there and catching up with all the top prospects for the system. And I mean, I've always said that's a very beautiful ballpark, and I think it's a phenomenal place.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, and I saw that whole exchange, and it was lame, and I wanted to stay out of it because I'm a human starting gun with crap like that, and you were doing just fine. Here, the bottom line is, the rich people do rich people stuff, and it's like a divorce almost. It's the kids that always suffer, just like the fans, and seeing Oakland and Sacramento fans turn on each other when, quite frankly, they have so much in common. They really do have so much in common with not just their underrated or the cities with the bad narratives, the teams moving. And I don't think I would have survived the Kings moving, and Oakland fans have had to survive now coming up on 3 teams leaving in the course of about 5 or 6 years. So well said. I will call you. Good luck. Don't, always wipe your hand on your pant leg before you shake someone's hand so it's not clammy. And we'll talk to you very soon, my friend.
Thanks, Dave. Have a good one.
See you, buddy. It's Casey Pratt moving on up. It's interesting. Good for him. Also,